Hundreds of Canadians in Gaza remain trapped. The Canadian government indicated last week that departures could begin as early as Sunday, but the Rafah border crossing was closed this weekend after a disagreement arose between the parties that control who gets in and who gets out. The crossing reopened today, but only to Egyptians and foreign nationals whose names appeared on previously released approved departure lists. Azia Mathkour is a Canadian who remains stuck in Gaza. She's there with her husband, 2 young children, parents, and extended family. She told us last week that some of her family is on the list of Canadians who have been approved to leave Gaza. So we checked back in with her today.
I don't know if we're going to make it, to be honest, to cross, because everything is very complicated. Nobody knows on the ground what the situation is. I just spoke to some people I know who are at the borders now, and till now they haven't crossed, they haven't entered the Egyptian side. They're still waiting to be called. We also don't know how safe it's going to be to reach Rafah's borders, and we don't know if my husband or my mother-in-law would be able to safely pass with us. I'm also so devastated that my father won't leave. He's refusing to leave tomorrow or to leave Gaza. He's saying that he does not want to leave his brothers and sisters and all of our family, and he will be very torn apart to leave them. I'm not sure what to expect tomorrow, to be honest. It's going to be chaos, it's going to be scary, terrifying, and even exhausting, given that I have 2 young children. We will have to leave from as early as 7 a.m. So imagine people are, till now, since 7 a.m. stuck in the borders. There's a possibility we will not pass tomorrow, because now the people that are on the list today, they're going to have to try tomorrow again. Oh God, this is just, no, it's just a nightmare, another nightmare.
Global Affairs Canada says it is in touch with 600 Canadians and their family members in Gaza. Louis Dumas is Canada's ambassador to Egypt. I spoke with him earlier today from Cairo. Ambassador, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So as we understand it, as we're speaking, the Rafah border crossing reopened today, but no Canadians or their family members will be able to get out today on Monday. Can you confirm that? Is that where things stand?
Yeah, that's correct. It's currently 7:30 in the evening here in Cairo. So luckily, we're very happy to see the border reopen today. As you know, it was closed for a few days, but in the next few days, at the very least, we hope to see a flow of foreign nationals coming from Gaza into Egypt.
Okay, so the hope was that Canadians would start getting out on Sunday and be mostly done by today and maybe by Tuesday. What is the updated timeline? Do you have any clarity as to when Canadians might finally be able to start moving out of Gaza and into Egypt?
So if we go back to Saturday, as you pointed out, David, we were scheduled for the first cohort of Canadians to come on Sunday. So we were told by our contacts that 200 Canadians will be coming on Sunday and 216 on Monday. Because, the disagreement at the border between the different groups, between the different, I would say, decision makers, the border was stopped for a few days, and then it has created a backlog. But Canada is still in the mix, to receive its nationals within the next few days.
Okay, there's a few things there I want to go through. So the 200 and 216, is that what you said the next day? So 416 people in total? Would that be correct?
That's what originally, when we were talking to the Egyptian contacts, they mentioned that Canada would have 2 groups coming in, a first group of 200 and then a group of 216. Okay. However, because the border was closed for a few days, I think we will need to talk to our contacts here in Egypt, and also our embassy in Israel will have to talk to their contacts and to realign the numbers. But rest assured, we're working extremely hard here in Cairo, in the region, and in Ottawa to expedite the exit of Canadians from Gaza into Egypt.
Okay, so on the math there, though, Ambassador, that would be about 416 people under the original plan. I know you say that needs to be recalibrated based on updated information. But we've seen numbers from Global Affairs. There's at least 450, 460, maybe 500 people in Gaza. So can you explain that gap? And we've also seen that you're in contact with up to 600 Canadians, permanent residents, and their family members in Gaza. So what happens to the other 100, 180 that aren't part of that list?
It's a very large group. I mean, definitely the numbers are changing almost every day. There's new people calling us and wanting to be added on the list. But we work very closely with the Egyptians here in Cairo. Our partners in Tel Aviv, our embassy in Tel Aviv works very closely with the Israeli government. And essentially, let's say, to make it simple, the number that is talked about, in respect to the number of Canadians, permanent residents, and family members is around 450. So that number is in flux, almost every day. So it's really hard to pinpoint a number. But rest assured, those who have registered with Canada, have reached out to our watch office in Ottawa, have been put on the list. And we're pushing hard in making sure that these individuals be expedited from Gaza into Egypt.
One of our colleagues at Radio Canada is reporting that the Gaza Border Authority is saying they have yet to receive from the Egyptian Foreign Ministry the list containing the names of the Canadians who are allowed to leave Gaza. Do you know what's going on there?
Well, I mean, sometimes there's a lot of information. It depends, you have to go to reliable sources. But I can guarantee you that the Egyptian authorities have received the list from Canada.
Okay, but do you know if Egypt has shared it with the Gaza officials? Because as I understand this, sir, there's a lot of players involved in this. Do you know if it's gone from Egypt into Gaza, so they would know which Canadians are allowed to get out?
But if you take a step back, Gaza is controlled by the Israeli forces. And essentially, Israel is the point of contact with, along with Egypt, in sharing the information. But for all intents and purposes, from our perspective, it has been shared. And if it had not been shared, why would have they put a number of Canadians on the list to be coming out of Gaza into Egypt? So therefore, I believe it has been shared, and I'm very confident about that.
Okay, so can you help me understand who decides and how it's decided who gets out? Because obviously you have a list of people you're advocating for. These people would be going into Egypt, so clearly Egypt plays a role. But Israel has a role here because of security concerns on who may or may not be coming out of Gaza. And then I would assume on the other side, the Gaza Border Authority, which is controlled by Hamas, also has a role. So can you walk me through the process here, sir, of who actually decides yes or no on who gets out?
So essentially, as I pointed out, the lists have been shared. So there's no question about that. So the original, the list of individuals to be coming out of Gaza and into Egypt is decided between Israel and Egypt. And then the list is provided to the Palestinian immigration services to allow people to get out. So it's, as you point out, it's very complicated. There's a lot of players involved, but rest assured, we're working every possible channel to put, our priority forward and working and making sure that people come as soon as possible.
So as a Canadian diplomat, you're stuck in a situation where, and this is not a criticism in any way, it's just the reality of it, where Israel or Egypt could say no to you for a specific name or a specific number or name or a specific cohort getting in or out for whatever reason is in their interest at the moment.
It's always a possibility, but I have to emphasize we've had great cooperation on both sides of the border. Israel has been really, really helpful in making sure that they received the list from Canada. Same for Egypt. And I have to commend Egypt, in my role as ambassador of Canada to Egypt, for their role in assisting us in having Canadian come through. And also we have forgotten that not too long ago, Egypt was dealing with a major crisis in the south, in Sudan. And again, Egypt has been stellar at helping, Canada in bringing individuals of interest to Canada to Egypt so we can send them forward to Canada. And again, in this scenario, they're doing the same.
I wonder, Ambassador, if you could shed some light on exactly why the border crossing was closed. There were reports, I saw in American media, I believe first, that Hamas tried to slip some wounded fighters out on a list through the Rafah border, and so Israel insisted on it being shut down. But we're also seeing reports from Reuters and others that Egypt closed it because they wanted guarantees that Israel wouldn't aim at any more ambulance convoys. And the decision to target the ambulance convoy, even though they said there was Hamas fighters in an ambulance, was at the heart of this. What explanation have you received? What do you know to be the reason why the border crossing has been closed for a couple of days?
No, I think it's a very fair question. So in the process of bringing individuals from Gaza into Egypt, so we have to think that there's two processes. There's an exit process and an entry process. The exit process, essentially, as you pointed out, ultimately is, I would say, administered by the Palestinian immigration. And there is an entry process into Egypt. And rightly so, Egypt is well within its right to decide who comes to its territory and who does not. In the case at hand, a few days ago, when the border was closed, from what we hear, it's a number of individuals that were pushed forward by Hamas, and they proposed that these individuals would go and get medical services in Egypt, to which Israel disagreed and Egypt disagreed. So therefore, Hamas said, no one will get out until our people get out. And that was the conundrum. And that was the point of no-go. But again, Egypt, being very sensitive to the issue, has dispatched its Minister of Health to Rafah, has dispatched its Governor of North Sinai to Rafah, and try to resolve the situation. I'm very happy. We hear that there is movement currently at the border in Rafah, and that's a very good sign.
So, Ambassador, just as a final point, and I appreciate there's a lot of people looking to get out through one exit in difficult circumstances, but we've seen our other G7 allies, the US, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, they've been able to get some departures of their nationals. Why is it Canada has not been able to do the same at this point?
Well, Canada was on the list. I mean, we were on the list to have people come through. I think it's with the border closure, I think that things got delayed. But keep in mind, there's 60 countries here in Egypt waiting for their nationals to come through. So up until the time that the border was closed, only 50% of those 60 countries had managed to get people across the border. And among the countries that did not have people come across the border, you have countries like Norway, Sweden, New Zealand, and Romania that has a very large component of individuals in Gaza. So I would not read too much into it. But if I may, Canada is really, really doing its darnest, to make the operation a success. At the meeting this morning, I was sitting in a room with 40 people from different departments, led by Global Affairs, led by the Canadian Forces, people coming from different departments like Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada, Canada Border Services Agency, Public Safety, and people are all committed in having people of interest to Canada coming from Gaza into Egypt. It's going to be a very difficult operation, but Canada is totally committed in bringing these people home. And we have to keep in mind as well that the Northern Sinai is not an easy area. It's an area that's been where Canada has said to Canadians, please do not go to North Sinai. For the past 10 years, it's a very, very difficult area. And then when we get to Rafah, we'll dispatch our teams to Rafah, get the Canadians, permanent residents, and family members. We'll bus them all the way from Rafah to Cairo. That's about a 6 to 8 hour trek. And then when they'll arrive here, we will take care of them. We will give them shelter, food, medical services as well. And we'll make sure they get to Canada as early as possible because Egypt is only giving us 72 hours. So I just want to emphasize, the efforts done by Canada and reassure your viewers that we're doing everything that we can to bring them home.
Louis Dumas, Canada's ambassador to Egypt. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.